Want to show your support for your Philly teams? Check out phillygoat.com. They have all of your needs covered, whether it's Sixers, Flyers, Eagles, Phillies, Union, Philly boxing, Philly culture, or Philly pride. There's something for you. Tees, hoodies, hats, any color you want, any size you want, including kids. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Be sure it has the authentic goat on the sleeve and use that promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Back to the Future, the podcast that takes a trip down Philly sports memory lane. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to another great episode 56. We are continuing to talk about the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame as we prep for that induction on November 2nd. Thank you so much for your patience this week as well. It's been a crazy week between the Phillies and just my day job as well as kids, so definitely appreciate your patience. It's a rainy Saturday here. College football is on. It's just one of those good days. Hopefully you're able to just veg out and catch up a little bit on the podcast. Hopefully you also have liked and subscribed. It's the best way to stay in the loop. Definitely working on some big things coming up here in the next couple of months. So the best way to make sure you know what's happening is by liking and subscribing. While you're at it, tell your friends, tell your enemies. I don't care who you tell. Just tell somebody. Spread the word. Get this thing growing. We've done so much in a year, all because of you guys being loyal listeners. So for that, I thank you. As I mentioned, we've been focusing a lot on both of my podcasts about the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, getting ready for the induction. On this day in Philly sports history, I've been focusing on this year's induction class, the 20 for 20 that the Hall of Fame has done, as well as 5 guys that I think are going to be there eventually. We discussed Bryce Harper as well as Jason Kelce as 2 of those 5 guys. So be sure to watch or listen to This Day in Philly Sports History. Available, if you're not already, available the same place you can get this podcast, YouTube. And like and subscribe for that as well. We always like to do fun things on that. And be sure, if you haven't, I know a lot of you haven't, for that I thank you. Check out the interview we've done here on Back to the Future with Ken Avalon, the president and one of the co-founders of the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. Had a lot of fun with him. Got a good insight on what's going on with the Hall and just the background, where they've come from, what they're doing, and sort of next steps that you want to do. If you want more information on this year's induction class, go to philadelphiasportshalloffame.org. That'll give you all the information for the inductees, the 20 for 20, as well as any ticket information. I already bought my ticket, so hopefully I will see you there. If you want information on the Hall in general, how you can visit, how you can help volunteer, donate, whatever you can do to give back, as well as the previous inductees. I've been talking a lot about just how easy it is to navigate by looking up by sport or by name. Go to phillyhall.org. So phillyhall.org or philadelphiasportshalloffame.org and find out and get all your information that deals with the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. Okay, episode 56. And a couple weeks back, we did something similar with the Eagles for this. And in keeping with the theme of focusing on the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, as well as the whole, just the Phillies, like it's NLCS week, like it's incredible. So keeping with the Phillies theme as well as the Hall of Fame, wanted to take a look at some of the history of the Phillies and the Hall of Fame. They're guys. I think I forget the exact number, but the number was ridiculous. The amount of guys that are in the Hall of Fame that have played for the Phillies. And I'm not going to sit there and list all, it was like 80, 90 guys. But like, I want to hear the people that had played a significant part of their career in Philly or are kind of associated with good things in Philly. You have Richie Ashburn, Del Hanty, Chuck Klein, Scott Rowland, Mike Schmidt, Jim Tomei, Grover Cleveland Alexander. Well, those guys were position players. Grover Cleveland Alexander, Jim Bunning, Steve Carlton, Roy Halladay, and Robin Roberts are pitchers. And then you have some special contributors. Harry Callis is in as the announcer. He won the Frick Award by Sam. Same thing. Manager Harry Wright and GM Pat Gillick. Now, that's a very small list. But again, I wanted to focus more on just the guys that are associated with Phillies. Like, obviously, Mike Schmidt only played for the Phillies, but a guy like Scott Rowland, who played most of his career in Philly, he's in the Wall of Fame. You guys, if you haven't done, go back and check. You know how I feel about the Phillies Wall of Fame. And then guys like Carlton, and Halladay was only here for a couple of years, but he's crammed a lot in there. I didn't put guys like Casey Stengel, who is in as a manager and only played like 1 year for the Phillies. So, and there's a couple guys from the A's that finished up their careers in Philly. Didn't want to include that. So, like, to me, that's the hardcore group of Hall of Famers for the Phillies. And for a team that's been around since 1883, it's not a lot. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there. And as I mentioned, we did something like this back on episode 49, and I examined the Hall of Fame case for both Randall and Donovan and where they stood, whether or not they should be in, how they stacked up and compared to other people. But unlike the Eagles, there aren't many Phillies who, right now, anyway, that should be in and are not. Like, I personally feel both Randall and Donovan, you can make a very strong case. I feel Randall more so than Donovan, but I feel like both of them could be in the Hall of Fame. Eric Allen should be in the Hall of Fame. There's not many like that for the Phillies. And I mean, the guys that there's really like three. Like Curt Schilling, but he had probably more success elsewhere. But, I mean, I feel like, and this is a whole nother topic, but I feel like he's being held out for his political beliefs and his political views, which I don't know. I don't feel like your personal life should hold you back from being in the Hall of Fame, because it really doesn't have anything to do, in my opinion, with your what you did on the field. Like, you can be an asshole and still be one hell of a baseball player. I mean, Ty Cobb was a complete and total dick, and he's in the Hall of Fame. So, and I mean, granted, it's a different time and things like that. Like, if Ty Cobb had Twitter, I'm sure he'd be in a lot of trouble today. But just because you're out there with your political views and you think things that maybe go against the mainstream, like, that doesn't mean you weren't a good baseball player. So you could make the case for Schilling being in, and probably of everybody on this list, he's probably the closest. Bobby Abreu, I mean, I think it's very easy to say, no, Bobby Abreu doesn't belong in. But if you really kind of sit down, break the numbers, and look at where he sort of fit in, especially during the time he played, he was one of the top 10 guys offensively in the league. And I think ultimately he gets dogged because he was on a lot of those almost teams with the Phillies would finish like 1 game back or 2 games back. They were in it, and then would choke kind of near the end. And I almost feel as though Bobby Abreu was like the poster child for those teams. There was like a perception of he didn't hustle and he was a terrible fielder and he was very nonchalant. And I think that perception is what's holding him out, because honestly, and I know it sounds crazy, and I've done a lot with Bobby Abreu over the course of both of my podcasts, but take a look at the numbers. Like, you can very easily, more so than probably anybody, make the case that Bobby Abreu should be in. But it's just sort of that whole perception and what he was perceived to do, not necessarily what he did, but what he was perceived. And the other one that always gets thrown around a lot is Chase Utley. And don't get me wrong, I love Chase Utley. I loved him when he was a player. I loved just sort of the whole world champs, world fucking champions. Like, I love that. Like, that was big for me. But I think he was one of those guys that kind of falls into the Hall of Very Good. I don't think he is one of the elites. Probably one of the better second basemen of during his period of time where he played. I just don't know if he's quite over the top. I do think if he didn't have those issues for that, however long it was, like he missed like half a season or something with his knees. I think had he not missed that time, maybe he's there. But not quite. Hall of Very Good, not Hall of Fame. But as you can see, like, and those like Bobby Abreu, yeah, he's known for being with the Phillies, but Curt Schilling had more success elsewhere. So it's not like there's a ton of people beating down the door from the Phillies to get into the Hall of Fame. But there are two that I did not mention in that list that are not in and 100% unequivocally should be in. And we'll take a look at them, kind of similar to what we did with Donovan and Randall. Break them down, and let me preface this too with I don't want to get lost in numbers. Like, I could sit here and tell you about the war and this and break down all these analytical numbers that will support this. And with them, yeah, like both of these guys deserve to be in, but that's not what this podcast is about. And that's just not the kind of guy I am. I'm just going to talk like eye test. Like, for me, like, again, Schilling, the eye test, he's in. Bobby Abreu, eye test, no. But if you do look at some of those numbers and then compare him, he's in. Chase Utley, eye test, no, not in. Donovan, he's like, it's very close. And again, you can make the argument. For me, Randall, in based on what he did. These guys, I think, just based on the eye test alone, both should be in. So let's get right into it and break it down. First, we're going to start off with Dick Allen. And he probably has the strongest case of the two because, quite frankly, it's a travesty that he's not in. And I don't know. And it's not just like a small group. There's a Baseball Writers Association of America or whatever that organization is. That's typically who votes on the Hall of Fame, who gets in, who doesn't. And Dick Allen was not good with the media. He was hated by the media, period. And in my eyes and in my opinion, in any of the research I've done, any article that I pulled up that said Dick Allen's case for the Hall of Fame, it always talked about the media and some of his off-the-field incidents. And I think starting with the media, he was not liked because he spoke out against racism. He sort of came into the Phillies. He was a rookie in 1964 when the Phillies had not been integrated for that long. And he spoke out against racism. And the Phillies did not have a strong track record of black players and treating black players the right way. And he was very outspoken about it. And at the time, right around the civil rights movement and all, a lot of people did not like that. And I feel as though the media held that against him, which is absolutely absurd, especially today when, like, you still hear some of those old school people that say, shut up and play basketball when LeBron James or whoever speaks out. But the truth of the matter is, people are looking up to these people. They should speak out and get people thinking. And maybe one of those white guys who they hate that this, that, or the others happened, likes the Phillies and likes Dick Allen, and maybe it gets the message out. But again, I don't want to go down that road. But the fact that the media, who he did not have a good relationship with, is responsible in large part for keeping him out, like I said, is a travesty. It blows my mind that could keep him out. He did have some off-the-field incidents where he missed games. He came in drunk or whatever. But but he wasn't the only one at the time doing it. It was like a very different time back then. I mean, there were guys smoking cigarettes on the bench before they go in, taking pops of whatever, like in the clubhouse, like in between innings and things like that. So that stuff, I mean, again, I think it was brought and fanned. The Flames were fanned by the media because they didn't like him because he was outspoken. He did get into a lot of fights with his teammates. A lot of that is very well documented. And I think there were times where like he wasn't, not that this matters, but he wasn't a fan favorite at first. Very bad relationship. And again, that should not matter. But like to the point where he would used to go out and write messages in the dirt, and then he was basically counting down the days to his last game in Philly. They for crying out loud, his nickname was Crash because the dude had to wear a batting helmet because people were throwing things in the stands at him, bottles and things like that. So all of that, I think, plays in, and it's unfortunate because this media bias is what's keeping him out. And I mentioned I don't want to get lost in the numbers, but I have to give you some of these numbers to show that Dick Allen was a hell of a player who is being punished by the media for whatever. And, I mean, he played 15 seasons in the majors, 9 in Philly. 7-time All-Star, and I've noticed a lot that even though, like, it's very important when people look at, like, how many All-Star games because they want you to be one of the best at your position during your era, during the time you played. And to me, especially, and I don't know when this changed or if it was always like that, but to me, the fact that the fans vote and that's who picks the all-star teams, like I don't know how much stock I put into that. I mean, for crying out loud, Mike Schmidt retired in 1989, like before May, I think. It was still early in the season in April, and he was voted as the starter in the all-star game that year. So things like that. Magic Johnson, for instance, and I know it's the NBA, but like when you have fans that are responsible for naming the all-stars and then the baseball writers are using that as very big or as a part of where you kind of choosing your Hall of Fame case, I don't know if that's fair. He was a 1964 Rookie of the Year, won the MVP in 1972. This now, I know they look at a lot too, and it makes sense. 6 other times he received votes in the MVP. 2 times he was in the top 10. And again, if based on that, you look at a guy like Bobby Abreu, who always kind of received votes here or there. But I digress. His slashes, he was 292, 378, and 534. He had 9 seasons with 85 or more RBI. 4 times he was in the top 10. And honestly, basically, he was one of the best players in his era. And again, if you look at some of those advanced numbers and like where he stacked up, like if you take the top 20 in certain categories, like 17 of the 20 are in the Hall of Fame. 2 of them will be. They just haven't been out long enough, and it's Dick Allen. So, like, it's kind of one of those things. Like, the Hall of Fame looks for that. Are you one of the best players of your era? Yes, he was. But it's up to the writers, and they didn't like him. And obviously, the first go around, it's like whatever the rules are, and I know they kind of tweak them here and there. But ultimately, you need to get 75% of the vote in order to get in, and then you have to receive a minimum amount. And like as the years sort of passed, his numbers sort of went down. And it's kind of like, duh. Of course, the sports writers aren't going to vote him in because they hated the dude. He also didn't make it on the Veterans Committee, which is made up of other Hall of Famers. There was a couple Phillies. He missed that by like 1 vote. Which again, like it's, and I also think too, what got him, and I read this article, his final year of eligibility on the Veterans Committee, probably he would have been in because if he was only 1 vote short, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll do some like behind the scenes like talking and wheeling and dealing and persuasion and things like that. But this vote happened during COVID. And so since they did not meet in person, it was on Zoom. So you didn't really have that sort of interaction and what usually happens, which, again, bad luck on his part. And I think it's also worth mentioning the Phillies did bring him back at the end of his career, and it was a much better go around. The fans liked it. So, like, all of that stuff, the off-the-field incidents and things like that did sort of, from the Phillies' perspective and the fans' perspective, get cleared up. It's just the baseball writers being jerks and just holding on to grudges and being like, I'll show you. You were a dick to me, so I'm going to be a dick to you type deal. He is eligible again, and I don't know what there's so many different ways to get in. And eventually I think they're going to make this right. But whatever it is, it's the golden era or something. Like he's not eligible until 2026. So I don't know what that is, but he will get in. Like, honestly, he will get in. It's just, it sucks for him that he's passed away and he's not there to see it. Hopefully his family will be able to kind of enjoy it somewhat on his behalf. But it's absolutely ridiculous because to me, if you're better than probably half, maybe a little less than half of the players that are already in the Hall of Fame, then you should be in. And yeah, I know different errors like dead ball and the equipment and rules and things like that. I mean, it's tough to compare errors, and it's one of those things that makes baseball more than any other sport. Maybe with the exception of basketball, now that people are comparing like Michael Jordan with LeBron in the 80s and all that. But baseball is one of the best where you can have those debates and those discussions. But I really, truly believe and feel that Dick Allen, like, it's, I don't want to say it's a no-brainer, but it's like whatever one notch below a no-brainer is that he should be in. It's just the math. I mean, he's better than most of the players in there. He has the numbers to support. People in the Hall of Fame feel he should be in. I mean, John Middleton said, hey, let's retire his number. And for the longest time, the Phillies had sort of a long-standing practice. I don't know if it was something that was written or just sort of like a general agreement that they didn't retire numbers of people who were not in the Hall of Fame. And it was like after this happened, it was blatant that he should have been in the Hall of Fame. So they did retire his number. And personally, I think it's a great move. I think it was the right move. It should have happened. And it's just, I don't know. It's just pure ridiculousness. Get it right. And it's a shame that we got 3 more years that we have to wait for this. But put Dick Allen in the Hall of Fame for the love of God. The numbers show it. And just like the eye test. Like, and it's, yes, I know it's a baseball more than anything. It's all about the statistics and this, that, and the other. But it's just the eye test. Just look at it. Like, watch highlights of the man. I mean, and one thing I know is I remember my dad and uncles talking about it. Like, all of that, like, he was such a strong dude. Like, he used like his bat was like so much heavier than what anybody else's was. And like they called it the Dick Allen special. So I don't know. Do the right thing. Put him in. It's pure ridiculousness. The Clashing Conferences podcast is a football conference-specific podcast that brings together the everyday passion of real fans and their not-so-friendly friends for the purpose of real-life football entertainment. Aggressive but friendly competitiveness is the name of the game as this group of NFC East fans jabs and banters each other trying to prove their pointless points. With an internal competition within for weekly and end-of-the-season bragging rights, watch as this group will still boast and brag even when their teams fail to bring home the W. New episodes drop on Thursday, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, so that leaves one other guy who should be in, and he's not, and that's Jimmy Rollins. And again, I don't want to get lost in the numbers. It's easy to do, especially baseball. That's sort of what the MO of baseball is. It's where the whole analytics got its start and everything like that. But it's like, come on. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. But this to me is much more cut and dry. Like this is cut and dry, 100%. Like I mentioned, the Hall of Fame looks to see if you're one of the best players of your position, of your era. And if Dick Allen should be in, Jimmy Rollins should be in. Because obviously, Jimmy Rollins played, Derek Jeter was the top. And like, there was sort of, he started a little bit before, but they played a lot of the same seasons. Derek Jeter, hands down, the best shortstop of his era. But who else was better? Go ahead. I mean, I'll wait. Name me one shortstop that played from like 95, the bulk of his career from like 95 to 2015. Like in that 20-year window, name me a shortstop that was better than Jimmy Rollins other than Derek Jeter. I'll wait. I mean, I guess you could say A-Rod, but he also cheated and then played third base for a good part of his career. So you can't do it. Like I went through, and Jimmy Rollins was a 3-time All-Star. And that's one of those things that, again, the Hall looks at that kind of hurts his case. But for Jimmy Rollins, he played in the era where it was strictly based on fans voting. And early in his career, he got more love, and he made a couple of those votes, or a couple of those All-Star games and got the votes. People hated Jimmy Rollins. They hated the Phillies during this time because they were winning. You don't think there's a little bit of a bias? Like, because I've done it. Like, I've gone down, you do the things like the old school way where you poke the chads out and hand in your ballot, or you go online and vote. Yes, you vote for whoever's on your team, and there are certain players you're like, yeah, I got to vote for him. But you don't think Mets fans are purposely voting for anybody else but Derek Jeter? You don't think Braves fans, Nationals fans at the time who hated the Phillies? It's a joke. So, okay, he made 3. It's a popularity contest to me anyway, but all of the shortstops in that era, it's in the National League anyway, none of them had more than like 3. Like the votes were always so close because it's a popularity contest. I mean, Jimmy Rollins was hands down better than them. And he was a better offensive player than any of those shortstops. And he was a far superior fielder. He was a 4-time Gold Glover. He was the best of both worlds. He was the 2007 Silver Slugger. He won the MVP that year. He led the league in stolen bases in 2001. He did it all. He's a 30-30 member. He did the 20-20-20-20 club. Like, he was the first guy to do that. Like, all of those things that he did. 46 leadoff home runs in his career. So he had some pop at the top of the lineup. He had some speed. He could hit. He was unequivocally the leader of that Phillies team, that era, the 07 to 11. And I think what he probably gets dinged for is probably a similar thing that Bobby Abreu does, because Jimmy Rollins was on those teams that just couldn't quite get over the hump. He had a couple of the issues where he didn't hustle out ground balls or things like that. But also that 07 to 2011 Phillies teams, they were so good and only won one World Series. So between the teams that couldn't get over the hump and for lack of a better way to put it, and I mean, I've talked a lot about this, those teams were underachieving. Like that 07 to 2011 team, no way they should have only won one World Series. They're right up there with kind of like how the Braves are like this year and last year. No excuse for them not to. So I think he, as the leader and the face of those teams, I think he gets punished for that. And rightfully, maybe so. But, I mean, look at the numbers. Like, he has better numbers. Like, when you rank this, and it's even better. Like, yeah, and the guys in his era, he should be in hands down based on that. But if you start looking at other shortstops, he doesn't have, like, his average is lower than some of them. But then his power numbers are better. His glove is there. His stolen base, like, he's just like the all, like, again, it's a no-brainer to me. And I mean, and the fact that a lot of times this is the media, and the media like makes it, they take a lot of those guys are old school and they take those hardline stances. Jimmy Rollins was very brash. Jimmy Rollins was sort of, look at what they did with Allen Iverson, and they were playing around in the same time. People didn't like that he came out and said, we are the team to beat, and then backed it up. They didn't like that he talked a little trash, maybe did a bat flip or something, which the stuff he did now would be tame compared to some of the things they do. And it's good that he helped drive that. But I have issues when guys are able to keep other guys out who deserve to be in based on personal bias and personal feelings. I just don't get it. And I just gave you two examples of two guys who should be in the Hall of Fame. Dick Allen will be at some point. I'm hoping that somehow Jimmy Rollins gets in. I mean, maybe I'm biased because I love Jimmy Rollins and like he meant a lot to those teams, and it's just, but I don't know. You let me know. Do they belong in? For me, the final verdict, Dick Allen. Yep. I don't get it. Politics and you're off the field, shenanigans should not be involved. Steroids, that's a whole other issue because that to me is cheating. Like you're doing something that is, and it's weird because a lot of people make that argument that, well, it wasn't illegal. Baseball didn't have no steroids policy, but they were doing things that were illegal in the country against the law. So it's like, do you have to say you can't rip lines of coke, like which I think there is a drug policy where it said that, but okay, I didn't know any better. But you're doing something that's illegal, so like steroids again are another story. But Pete Rose, I mean, there's no way he should not be allowed to be in the Hall of Fame based on something he did that wasn't during his playing time. I mean, I guess there could be some overlap that when he was a player manager, but I don't know. I mean, and again, with the Pete Rose thing, and I know gambling, it's a sore subject and it's a slippery slope, but I think the context matters. And Pete Rose at least he was betting on the Reds to win. So as the manager, you knew damn well he was going to do his best and everything he could to make sure the Reds won. And again, like, Dick Allen was a scumbag to the media, allegedly, or they felt. And I don't care. You could be the biggest scumbag in the world. If you're one of the best of your era, one of the best to ever play, one of the best at your position, you need to be in. O.J. Simpson, biggest scumbag there is. Got away with murder, literally. Did they take him out of the Hall of Fame? No. I think they did strip him of his Heisman, but doesn't cancel the fact that he won the Heisman Trophy. Was one of the best football players to ever play, one of the greatest running backs to ever play. He's a Hall of Famer. They didn't take him out because he's a scumbag. I mean, I told you about Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb was one of the most racist people you ever met. Went into the stands and fought, like literally fought a fan. They didn't take his away. So the fact that Dick Allen may or may not have hurt a couple media people's feelings, and that's what he's getting punished for, it's a travesty. It's a joke. It's kind of like, oh, I don't even want to be in the Hall of Fame then. J-Roll, again, I think he's in. I do think at some point he'll get in. I don't know if he'll get in before Dick Allen or what, but I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I think the Phillies will retire his number. I think what they're doing is they're waiting to see where his Hall of Fame candidacy kind of goes from there. But even if he doesn't get in, it's a stupid rule. Like, I'm glad Middleton said, no, we're kind of, no, don't go the Wall of Fame route and just don't start retiring Juan Samuel's number. I'm not saying just retire everybody's number, but a guy like Jimmy Rollins should be retired. Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, Chooch, those guys, no, I don't think their numbers need to be retired. Jimmy Rollins, 100% number 11 should be retired by the Phillies. 110%. It's a stupid rule. But again, don't go the route of the Philly Wall of Fame. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, listen to our Wall of Fame episode. I believe it was episode 50. I'm going to say 55. So go check that out. But yeah, I'm not saying let's retire Juan Samuel's number. But what do you think? Let me know. Do you agree? Should Dick Allen and Jimmy Rollins be in? Should one of them be in, the other not? Let me know. Make sure you reach out to me on social media. YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Jimbo_Mont. Instagram at Philly Jimbo. If you have my cell phone number, send me a text message. If you're listening or watching on Spotify, there'll be a poll up there. If you're on Facebook or whatever, I'm going to put some stuff up for that. Let me know. Dick Allen, Jimmy Rollins, should they be in the Hall of Fame? You let me know. You know how I feel. I actually will go as far as saying Jimmy Rollins is number 11, should be retired. But if you haven't done so already, be sure to like and subscribe Back to the Future. That way you can stay in the loop of some of the things I have coming down the pike. It's just a matter, again, I know last time I did say something was going to be debuted on a Sunday. Still working out some of the technical aspects of that. I have some time this afternoon. I'm going to play around with some things. I have some things lined up for the new year. Might be taking a different sort of approach to both podcasts, so stay tuned for that. But go also like and subscribe This Day in Philly Sports History. Every day, get your daily Philly sports history lesson. In October, like I said, we've been spotlighting the 20 for 20. It's all about the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, the inductees, and my 5. We've already said that Bryce Harper and Jason Kelsey will be in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame someday. Got some fun stuff in line for October. Again, like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Spread the word. If you want more information on this year's induction class for the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, go to philadelphiasportshalloffame.org for information about this year's class and tickets. If you want to know how you can help and learn more about the history of the Hall of Fame, go to phillyhall.org and check out the interview with Ken Avalon we've done. It's a rainy day. Good time to catch up on Back to the Future. I told you about the Phillies Wall of Fame. We did the Hall of Fame spotlight for Donovan and Randall. So go check that out. Hit me up on the social media. Now you got me all frustrated because of J-Roll and Dick Allen not being in. It's atrocious. It's an absolute travesty that they're not in. But time to go edit this thing and post it so you guys can listen. I'm going to be working and making some enhancements, hopefully, to the podcast in the near future. So please be sure to like and subscribe to stay in the loop. Hopefully next time I talk to you, we're getting ready for the World Series. Hopefully the Eagles will be 6-0. This has been Back to the Future. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a rainy Saturday and a good week at that if you're not listening on Saturday. And until next time, I will see you when I see you.